So a couple of things that I want to touch on. This is my Veterans Day message and things that I think people should think of. And of course, it probably is not going to make you comfortable hearing this, but here it goes. So you have to talk straight from the cuff at times, yeah? 22 veterans a day end up committing suicide, and that's a very well-known fact in this country. That's 22 veterans a day, and that's per minus the 8 waking hours that we essentially have. So if you look at it, it's more than one an hour. It's one every 40 to 45 to 50 minutes, something like that, because we only have 16 waking hours in the day, even though we're spread across 4 time zones. Alaska and Hawaii, of course, you can add, by your own accord. With that, it's also very humorous to me that 70% of what is considered suicidal ideation within the VA rating system, that means people who sit there and think of suicide. You have to go in and basically tell your psychologist or whoever's doing your lab work or whoever you visit at the VA and convince them that this is something that you have, suicidal ideation. So how do you prove to them that you have it? Well, to me, if you've been fighting for 20 years for benefits and you go by committing suicide, that should at the very least, if nothing else, prove that you have suicidal ideation. So whoever the next of kin is, whether it be the child or whether it be the spouse or family member, whoever it should be, should get back pay for that individual, at the very least. The way that I think the VA treats veterans right now is basically, I think it's much easier for them, and it's much easier for the United States government right now when we come back from a box and they can drape a flag over it, and we can go back to arguing about kneeling for the anthem or not standing for this or not saluting for that and all the other frivolous shit that really isn't that important when you really break down that there's a human life being lost, right? All the little semantics of whether somebody chooses to kneel and how much they get paid or doesn't get paid, trust me, everything comes from a financial decision. And so I want to take it one step further, and on the last video I had mentioned that it would be not even a whole 6 months, and I would be back here again. I'd be talking about the next mass shooting that happened in the United States, and yet it wasn't even a whole 5 weeks, and then the shooting happened on right on the outskirts of San Antonio, Texas, where a guy walked in and popped off at some people into a Baptist church. Ex-Air Force, 95 or 96% of pretty much all the terrorists and terrorism in the United States that happened before September 11th was usually white male between 30s and 40s, prior military, people like Timothy McVeigh are prime candidates. This last guy that walked in there and popped off however many rounds. And forget what affiliation the guy may have or doesn't have. I guess at first it was coming out that he was part of Antifa, and that's information that I had got, and since then I hadn't really looked into it. That has not some, that to my knowledge at this moment, is not something that has been confirmed, and so therefore I have to apologize for putting that fact out there. So I'm sorry for putting that out there in my haste. It did come from what I believe to be a credible news source at the time. I do have people that call and they do inform me, but I want to go back and I want to ask this question really quick about the suicidal ideation, about terror attacks, about what it takes to be a terrorist in this country. And I'm going to use myself as the example here, and I'm just going to give you a scenario. Today is Sunday the 11th, 12th, I think the 12th. I want to give you a scenario that Thursday, in 4 days from now, I walk into a local government office or agency and end up killing 30 to 40 people, armed with 2 semi-automatic weapons, rifles, handguns, anything else that I can possibly get my hands on during that time. 4 days from now is when I walk in and this happens. That's the scenario. What will I be then? Of course I am an immigrant to this country. Is it going to be important for me then to be labeled a terrorist? Am I less of a terrorist or more of a terrorist because my skin is white? Does it make an impact or a difference in my life if my parents lived around an area that was predominantly Middle Eastern, around Dearborn, which is the highest Arab population in the United States? Would it make a difference if I had traveled to Egypt or other Muslim countries and had actually visited mosques? Would it make a difference if I had gone to a mosque here? Would it make a difference on all the Arabic friends that I have? Is it going to make a difference or an impact if I do that before I do it, if I scream Allahu Akbar, which basically means God is great, which by the way, also Christians say, who are in Iraq and other Arabic speaking countries. They have that same saying, so it's not something that's just towards Muslims. What would I be labeled as then? Would I be a Trump supporter that lost his shit? Would I be an ex-veteran who couldn't come and cope and deal with things? How much of this, of what I'm saying now and releasing, how much of this is actually a threat? How much of this is hate speech? How much of this is something that I'm saying, let's say Thursday something like this happened, people would look at this video Friday and say, well, holy shit, he gave us a warning of what he was going to do. Is it that? What makes this a warning or doesn't make it a warning? Me doing it or not doing it, me failing at doing it, me getting arrested before doing it, me getting summed up on some charges before doing it. What would make this a threat? What doesn't make it a threat? What makes me a terrorist? Does me merely bringing the idea into your head of the possibility of something like this happening and me being behind it, is that what makes me a threat? Is that what supposedly could make you uncomfortable? Is that what makes me a terrorist? Do I inspire others? And therefore, by that sort of affiliation, would that make me a terrorist? If somebody saw this video and they went out and they did something similar and they found afterwards notes in their house, I watched this video from this guy who mentioned these points or said he might do something, and they go through and they follow through with something, their own plan, their own deviation, am I held liable? Am I responsible for it? On whose blood, whose hands rather, would blood be for something like this happening? Would it be the VA? Would it be the government system? Would it be all the people that essentially aren't getting taken care of? Would it be the easy ability for me to go and get automatic or semi-automatic weapons? By the way, I don't have any here right now, not any that are registered to my name anyway. The 3 that I do have came with the house. What would it take? What is your own prior disposition on whether you're a conservative or a liberal, and what criteria would I have to meet in order for me to be considered that or not? If I had a brother in my family who was gay and I was friends with him and I was fine with him being gay, and I went out and I partied with people who were considered Northern California liberals, would that make me automatically a liberal terrorist? Does the word terrorism even exist then? Or would it exist? Would that even be a possibility? What would it take? What criteria would I have to meet in order for that to come to fruition for you and for you to be able to call me that? Is there anything? I also want you to think that with 22 veterans a day committing suicide, you're dealing with people that the majority, I'm assuming, at the very least have mental issues. I mean, if people are suicidal, there's suicidal prevention hotlines, there's other places people can call. So at the very least, we can establish that they have mental issues. We can also establish with a fair level of certainty that they've been through at least basic training and they know how to fire a weapon, and they're probably a little more well versed on it than the average bear is. I'm not saying they're gun nuts, I'm just saying they've done it before. A lot of people never have. Have you ever thought of the fact that in America, with all the shootings that we do try to say are happening, with 60 people dead almost in Las Vegas, which by the way, I was 3 blocks away when that happened and was able to film part of it, to the recent shooting that ended up happening a few days back over in Texas, on the outskirts of San Antonio, outskirts of where basic training is for the Air Force. And by the way, this is done by an ex-Air Force person. So does anybody ever think of the fact that the estimated 22 or even higher veterans every day that do end up committing suicide, what if a third of them, what if 5, what if 10 of them a day started going in there and basically committing the same sort of atrocities that Stephen Paddock and this other shooter in Texas ended up committing? What if 5 to 10 veterans a day were able to go in and kill 29 to 59 people? What then? Would it then finally become a problem where the United States would want to fix it? Would the solution then be to make sure all veterans who go in are never able to have guns when they come out and be able to have permits? What if the people that, let's say we created that law and then afterwards they bought them illegally and still committed the same acts? What then? What do you look at then? It's hard for me to imagine with more stipulations on the kind of rifles, assault rifles, automatics, semi-automatics, the things that people complain about, 50 calibers, smaller things, AK-47s, Russian SKSs, all these different things that people have. Heroin and cocaine come in here, and they come in here by the boatloads. I mean, kilos of it. You know, for it to make it to your small town, it of course has to be cut. But the bottom line is, it's coming in you know, 40 kilos, 80 kilos, these big bags, and it's getting filled up on planes and everything else. For people to sit there and think that if you are legally unable to buy it here, people aren't going to pay a premium price for the cartel and other people to be able to bring it over. I mean, we can't stop people from traveling here who end up being here illegally. We can't stop drugs, but we're going to stop a certain amount of metal from coming in here. And that's metal that's designed to essentially go and kill people. I understand that it's not hunting stuff, but it is designed to kill people. That's what it's for. But have people ever thought, what if a third of the veterans every day, instead, before they actually put a bullet through their own temple, through their own head, or OD'd on something, or whatever way they choose to go, has anybody ever thought, what if each of them, out of, you know, the third, or the you know, the half, the 10 out of the 22, or 11 out of 22, what if each of those are responsible for 30 deaths, or 60 deaths? What if we were losing 300 to 600 people a day because of that? How would that change things? What would your view on that be? What if in the future that starts happening? Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.